Good morning or good afternoon to all my little cougar artists out there. Let me start by saying we're going to have to shift gears. We're going to have to switch things up a little bit, do things differently in art class. But as Mr. Bodett would say, you got to be flexible. So the way that we're going to do art class for a while at least is I'm going to be teaching all of my art lessons through video presentations like this one, and you're going to follow along and do your artwork as you watch the video. Now, the good news is that while you're doing the artwork, I'm also going to be in the room with you physically, at least standing in the doorway to make sure that everything goes well. So you're going to have two Mr. G's with you each day that you have art. I'm so happy for you guys. When I think of all the children throughout the world who have no Mr. G's in their life and you have two, how lucky are you? So with that being said, if you're ready, I'm ready. Mr. G, are you ready? Well, then let's get started. Well, now that my tropical scene, my island, my tree, my ocean, and my sky are completely drawn, it's time to add some color. And the first step is to take some clean water and a clean brush, and I'm going to paint the entire sky with clean water as if it is invisible ink. So I'm going to start doing that now, and I'm going right over my palm tree. I'm staying inside the frame that I've drawn, but I'm coloring the entire sky with clean water. And if you haven't started doing this yet, go ahead and do it so that we're all finished at around the same time. I'm trying to be very careful to stay inside these frames right here, because any place that I put this water, that's where my paint is going to go. One of the neat things about watercolor paint is that it spreads and bleeds and blends every place that the paper is wet. But if you know what you're doing, you can keep it from going places that you don't want it to go. So I'm being very careful not to go into my island. I'm being very careful not to paint outside my frame. I'm being very careful not to go any place down below here. The only thing that I want wet is my sky, including my tree and my little volcanic islands over here. Now, once my sky is completely wet, and if it starts to dry out, I can always add more water. You want to add as much water as you can, as long as your paper doesn't have puddles. You don't have so much water that it forms puddles on your paper. So if there's no puddles, and you spread the water around, it's time to add some paint. And I'm going to add blue. I'm going to get myself a little bit more water. I'm going to stir it around in the blue paint for about 10 seconds. And if you haven't started doing that, you can start doing this as soon as your paper is wet. Get yourself some paint. And you can see how the paint starts to bleed and spread, even in areas that my paintbrush didn't necessarily touch. And it creates a very cool hazy effect. In fact, if I can picture in my mind what I want my sky to look like, I can leave some of it white so it looks like clouds. Like I said, if you haven't started, go ahead and do this. You want to stay inside that area that you've colored with clean water. If you decide that you have too many clouds, or if you decide that you don't want to have any clouds at all, well, you can go ahead and paint right over them. Don't worry about painting over your tree. Now at this point I don't need any more water, and I can just decide for myself whether the sky is too light or too dark. If it's too light, well, obviously I'm going to add more paint, and if it's too dark, one thing I can do is blot up some of the color. So if you're painting, stop for just a second. I'm going to show you how you blot up the color. You can see how my sky is fairly dark in this picture, but if I take a piece of paper towel and I just place it over my painting, that paper towel is going to pull up a lot of the water, and then when it pulls up the water, it's also going to pull up some of the color. You can see now that my sky is much lighter than it was before, and my paper is almost dry. So I'll show you what it looks like, and you can decide for yourself, like I said, if you want to have clouds in your picture or if you want to make it completely blue. So take just a few more minutes and paint your sky with clean water. And after your sky is painted with clean water, go over it with blue paint until you like the way your sky looks. As soon as you're done doing that, wash off your brush as well as you can, set it down so that I know that you're finished. So keep working, just listen to me as you're working. And one thing I want to tell you is that it's tempting with all these colors in front of you. You want to paint the ocean, you want to paint the sandy beach, you want to paint the palm trees. That's not a good idea right now because our paper is still a little bit wet. And if I were to take my green and paint the palm leaves right now, they would do the same thing that my sky did. They would spread all over the place, and that's not what we want. So we have to be patient, and we have to wait for our sky to dry before we go on to the next step. So keep working on your hazy blue sky, and when you're finished, we'll go on to the next step. We're going to color our ocean with color pencil, but it's not a regular color pencil. It's actually a watercolor pencil, and I think you guys are going to have a lot of fun with this when you see some of the techniques that you can incorporate into your picture with this watercolor pencil. And I'm going to start out by coloring nice and firm, but all of my coloring strokes are going to go across. Now it's going to be tempting when you get to the side to color up and down because it's easier to color like this than it is like this when you get to the edge. So I'm going to start right at the edge, and I'm going to color with nice firm coloring strokes going straight across, nice and firm, just like this. See how everything goes across? Not up and down, but horizontally, just like my horizon line. And some of the lines can be longer, and some can be shorter. But I'm coloring nice and firm and straight across, just like this. And you may also notice that I'm leaving some little white spaces there. That's okay because when we go over it with our brush, the paint is going to fill in those areas right there. So if you have your blue color pencil, go ahead and start coloring your picture, and remember to color with firm coloring strokes. Remember to make all of your coloring strokes go straight across. And we're going to color around the island. We're not going to color the island. So the areas that we're going to color are right here. And we're going to stay inside the frame. So as soon as you're ready, go ahead and get started. Stop what you're doing for just a second. You see where I'm coloring, where I'm not coloring? Make sure that you're not covering up your island, and make sure that all of your coloring strokes go horizontally, just like your horizon line. Nothing goes up and down. Go ahead and continue coloring. now my ocean is completely finished. I'll give you guys just a couple more minutes to finish up your ocean, and when you're done, we'll go on to the next step. Well, by now you should have finished the ocean with color pencil. And if you have, we're going to take our paintbrush and some clean water. This water's got a little bit of blue in it, but it really doesn't make much difference. I don't need any paint on my brush, but we're going to see now how watercolor pencils are different than all the other colored pencils that you've used up to this point. I'm going to take some clean water and I'm just going to go over the ocean that I've painted. And I'm going to start with a little bit of water at a time. And you're going to find that the more that you go over it, the more your pencil lines are going to disappear. If I keep going over and over and over, eventually the pencil lines will disappear and everything's going to look solid blue, which isn't terrible. So if you haven't started yet, go ahead and take some clean water, go over the ocean that you have already drawn with color pencil with a nice clean wash, and you can see how that watercolor pencil and the clean water will fill in some of those white spaces so that you still have some of those soft waves on top of the ocean, but it looks more real than if you just left it like it was with color pencil. Go ahead and do that now. And after you finish the ocean, we'll go on to our palm leaves, our palm tree, our beach, and our island off in the distance. We're going to color all of those with watercolor pencil, and I think you guys are really going to like the technique.